What's your good deed that backfired on you, and what did you learn from it? I was at a food store, and this woman in front of me was buying a bag of apples, but her card got declined. So I asked the cashier if I could pay for it. The woman was very thankful, and then disappeared into the store, leaving me and the cashier looking at each other, not knowing what just happened. The woman came back with bags of stuff. I said I would pay for her apples, not tons of more groceries, and she got pissed. Walked out leaving all her groceries and saying I was selfish and rude. Made me really unsure about helping people. I used to be pretty well off, so I'd do the whole random acts of kindness thing. When I first moved to my current city, I was at the gas station, and this lady ran up to me with seemingly real tears in her eyes, saying she needed some gas to get home to her kids. I said, yeah, sure, pull up behind me and I'll swipe my card after I'm done. This bitch started screaming at me that she needed cash. I said, I don't carry cash. And she proceeded to scream at me and call me a broke a-hole. That's how I learned about the crack issues in the area around my office. Thankfully, I didn't live in that area. I guess they hang out around the corporate campuses thinking people will just carry $100 bills as if they're $1 bills. This is actually a recurring and growing trend of scammers. One of my friends who works at Walmart posts and rants about it from time to time. Usually the scammers will get in line and leave repeatedly until they find themselves in front of someone who seems somewhat sheepish or millennial looking, and then try the scam. In recent times, they'll have a cart nearby and just grab it immediately. The problem is, they can try this scam once per checkout aisle until the cashier catches on. But by then, all the food in their cart has been out of their refrigerators for too long and has to be thrown away. So either they get a free cart of food by scamming someone, or they've wasted hundreds of dollars of product, which is just as bad as stealing them. Gave my best friend a lot of money over a long period of unemployment to help him get to job interviews. Get shoes and other clothes for said interviews as well, along with haircuts and whatever else to help him land the job. Paid for him to eat out with me and have a few drinks at bars quite a few times as well. Turns out, he was lying to me the entire time. He never intended to work, never attended a single job interview, and was using my money to go see his girlfriend. We're not friends anymore. I had friends like that. I was making more money than them at the time. We'd all go out to bars and clubs on the weekends. Sometimes they'd be broke, so I'd have to pay for their drinks. One of them always acted like he was so broke, and we'd all pitch in for him to have a good time. Turns out, he wasn't broke. He was just stingy and didn't want to pay for anything. Ever. He was just saving his money to spend on himself. We figured it out, so we just stopped inviting him along. Helping coworkers. I usually get my work done early and would always like to help my coworkers since it's the right thing to do. Eventually, they saw that they could just take advantage of my generosity and started slacking off. I learned that it's okay to be a little bit selfish. I, of course, still do my work on time, but if I have extra time to spare, I just screw around until my shift is over. Woman in front of me at the store was about to walk away from her wallet that she left in the cart. I reached for the wallet and asked with an outstretched hand towards her, "Excuse me, miss, is this yours?" In essence, handing her the wallet she was about to forget. I got yelled at for being a thief. A scene was made, and I've walked away from forgotten wallets ever since. Most people would have been overly thankful. That one woman was probably just a f***ing asshole. Yeah, weirdly enough, where I grew up, I learned early on you don't even reach towards it. You just yell, "Yo, you dropped your shit." I get a raised eyebrow in the suburbs, but I'd rather that than getting the cops called to me or getting into something. Working at Walmart in college at month end, they asked me to stay a little late to help out in a different department because they were doing inventory counts. I had no problem helping, especially for my coworkers. It was maybe another hour of work. Come to work the next day, and they write me up because I forgot to take a lunch. My original shift was short enough that I didn't need a lunch, but because I stayed that extra hour, I went over the time required for a lunch break. I didn't even plan on a lunch since it wasn't in my schedule to begin with. I was pissed at my boss and told them, don't ask for my help again. A long time ago, I managed a phone center. I offered to help a much older employee with the new computer system that she was having trouble with, and I invited her to come in early to train. She did. I set up the computer to allow her to enter dummy data and sat around to answer questions while I did other work. she sent a letter to the chief of staff accusing me of sexual harassment. After a thorough investigation, I was found innocent. Part of what they uncovered was that she had made the same claim at 4 other employers. Since then, I am never alone in a room with a woman at work. Helping my mother-in-law, who was just my girlfriend's mother at the time, with fixing stuff around the house. She's so incompetent and lazy. My willingness to help turned into her saving up things for me to do, simple things like changing light bulbs. Anytime I'd go over there, she wouldn't even say hi, and would immediately present me with a bunch of things to do for her that she basically just didn't want to do herself. Change light bulbs, unclog the toilet, shovel the driveway, do stuff for her on her phone, order items for her on Amazon. Eventually, it became a huge problem, and I started complaining about it to my now wife, and refused to keep doing so much for her mom. It's led to a big problem because the mother-in-law thinks I'm just being a jerk, and my wife seems to agree. Sorry, Nancy, I'm done changing your light bulbs. Get off your lazy butt and do things for yourself. See, the part that gets me about this is I thought that the wife was going to agree with him, not her mother, and frankly, that concerns me a little bit. Supporting my ex-girlfriend and her children. I let her stay at my place because she got evicted from hers. It was supposed to be temporary till she found another spot, and she immediately told me she didn't want me to stay there because she didn't feel comfortable with me being there with her daughters. I even gave her $1,000 for a down payment for another place. A month went by, and it was clear she wasn't leaving, and she blew the grand I gave her on God knows what. She tried saying it was my fault that she spent it, which I had nothing to do with. I kicked her and the kids out completely when she started saying I never do anything for her. Then, for the added kick in the nuts, 5 months after I threw her out of my life, I found out she was 8 months pregnant. And it wasn't my child. Oh, and she was trying to talk to me as well at that time, but would make up excuses why she couldn't see me. And she was trying to get me to buy her things and help her get another place. I didn't do it. I only found out because a friend of mine has her Snapchat and he showed me the snap and her Facebook, and even when I showed the evidence, she denied it. Then she accepted I caught her and gave it a meh and went on with her day. Mine's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. I have a cousin who has severe anger issues, and she's a psychopath. I met her last year and we started talking and hanging out. Our aunt died last year, and she was really sad about it and was going through a hard time. I'm a good cousin, so I was there for her throughout it and supported her. A few months later, I went through my first breakup. By this time, me and my cousin had been talking on the phone for about a month every night. I decided that I was going to watch a show on my laptop the night after the breakup, and I called her later than she would have liked. She's twice my age. I'm in my 20s, she's in her 40s. So you'd think she'd be a mature adult and ask me to politely call her earlier, right? That's the exact opposite of what she did. I called her twice that night, and she ignored both my calls. The next day, she proceeded to get pissed at me over it and caused a massive argument with me that led to us going no contact for a month. I tried reasoning with her and even offered to call her earlier if that's what she wanted. She kept going off on me like a lunatic, though. I gave up on reasoning with her eventually and told her she's twice my age, so to stop acting like someone less than my age, which pissed her off big time. A month later, she messaged me back on Facebook to cause another massive argument with me because I had gone to her parents' house, and while I was there, told them what she did. I ended up telling her off because I was sick of her BS. I blocked her on my Facebook that day and haven't spoken to her since. That was over a year ago now, and she's still blocked on my Facebook. I don't care what happens, I'm never going to be there for her again after how she treated me. She can go screw herself for all I care. I hate her. She's a heartless bitch. And she's done this to pretty much the entire family as well. I'm not the only one she's caused fights with. About 99% of the family has nothing to do with her. As for what I learned from it, don't trust everyone, not even your own family. I have a good family for the most part, but she's crazy. My life is much better without her in it. Good riddance, man. Yeah, I saw her a couple times since those fights, and she made no attempt to make things right or apologize, so that just shows how immature and heartless she truly is. Even if she did apologize, though, I still wouldn't talk to her again. I've also heard from my aunt and uncle that she still causes crap with people on a regular basis, so I'm just glad she's not in my life anymore. She'd always complain to me when we'd talk on the phone about how she has no one in her life and her family creates so much drama for her, when, in reality, she causes the drama and it's her own fault she has no one in her life. I've said it before and I'll say it again, she's a child trapped in a woman's body. They say common sense ain't so common, but I think that rule applies equally to maturity. There's a lot of really immature adults out there. My personal running theory is that humans enjoy drama. Some people get it in a positive way, like through a hobby or through excitement at work. Some people use middle-of-the-road means to get their drama, reality TV, gossip, things of that nature. And some people are like the lady in this story, 40 years old and still trying to start shit like they're in grade school because they have no life and no interest in getting one. So this is a wild life lesson I learned. At my old church, we had a monthly rotation for helping serve meals at the nearby homeless shelter. One time I was volunteering there, and I started talking to this guy who admitted to being a convicted offender, and was having a hard time getting back on his feet because of a past transgression. In that same conversation, he points to a young girl, maybe 15, 16, with a couple little kids of her own, and says that later that night they'll need a ride to a different women's shelter across town. I quickly volunteer to give them a ride later. A couple hours after, I come back to take them to the women's shelter, and this guy, let's call him John, is there too, insisting that he come along. I don't like this, given the nature of his offense, but I don't know any of these people beyond 2 hours ago, and I just really want to help these young kids get home. As I'm driving, my non-driving hand is in a clenched fist, and I'm thinking through how I'd react if this dude tried to attack me. It was a very tense drive for me. We ended up getting them dropped off without a hitch, and I take John home. On the ride home, John asks me sincerely for help to get back on his feet. I obviously hate that he hurt kids in the past, but I think everyone should be able to get a second chance, and I'd love to help him achieve that if I can. So the next day, I call up the director of the homeless shelter and tell her all about my tense drive and the weird dynamic of how John requested to ride along despite there really being no reason for him to do so. In response to this, the director just said, "He may have just saved your life." I responded in major confusion with, "What are you talking about?" She then explained that young girl in particular has a habit of asking men to take her places as a favor, and then proceeding to threaten to accuse or extort them of assault to the police in exchange for payment to make it go away. She said that the fact that John rode along made that strategy impossible because he was a witness. She said John likely knew this girl since they often interacted in their shared transient community, and insisted that he come specifically to prevent her from pulling that con on me. Holy f***. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect or plan for that. I was raised in upper-class suburbs and never had any real encounters like that up until that point. My life lesson here was not to stop trying to help people less fortunate than myself, but instead to just be sure I have my guard up when I approach atypical situations on a going-forward basis. Man, that one was a roller coaster. But I gotta say, I do love a good don't judge a book by its cover story. And I do hope this John guy is able to keep that new leaf turned over. He seems like he's doing alright. I worked at a car rental place. The woman came in needing to rent a car last minute to get her kids to school or something. My boss was a prick, and a bit of a bigot, and he wanted me to upcharge her an additional $500 single black female tax. Ugh. So I used my discount to get her cousin rates at another branch and took her there. I got fired. Learned nothing really, I guess to be more slick. That some people really give a shit about stuff like that. I'd do it again. I guess what I learned is the right thing sometimes has a cost, and takes action. I spent 10 years helping my group of friends when they needed it. Now they're all gone and busy with their family and kids. They never check in to see how I'm doing or where I'm at. They have no idea that this is the point that I need them now more than ever. What a waste. I had an exercise to complete for some IT classes, and there was a bunch of stuff that involved Excel. A colleague of mine, a girl who was abysmal at anything tech-related, was struggling hard, so I sent her my assignment when it was about 75% done, and told her that if she just studies what I've done there, she'll be able to finish her own assignment. What actually happened, I think, is that she ignored what I wrote to her, assumed I sent her a completed assignment, and then proceeded to send it for grading at the last second. The result? We both failed, because the professor figured it out. Thankfully, I was already passing the class anyways, and he even pulled me aside to tell me that he understands wanting to help others, but that the girl messed up big time for both of us. It was the last time I directly helped someone during studies. What have I learned from it? That reaching out to a stupid person with a helping hand may end up with them dragging you down. Yeah, I think the assumption that he sent her a completed assignment without her having to do anything, it sounds like she was a really entitled person to begin with who was just trying to get a free ride through school anyways. A few years ago, I was working at this big company, and one of the people on my team was struggling, so I jumped in to help him out. Suddenly, they get promoted to a senior manager level and get a team. I thought it was a little odd that they moved up so quickly, but it turns out this a-hole was using multiple people across the team to do his work for him, then claiming he did all of it, and got the promotion because of all his good work. I let my wife's best friend stay rent-free at our home after she was kicked out by her landlord. My wife and I divorced shortly after. The amount of disrespect and nonsense going on behind my back while this good friend of hers was over at my place was unbelievable. What did I learn from it? When your significant other starts hanging out with their single toxic friends, your relationship is probably over. A guy at work was having problems with something that seemed interesting, so I offered to help. He said the best way for him to diagnose it and for me to understand it was for him to teach me. So he spent a few hours teaching me how to do it, found the problem while we were working, then excused himself while I was left to do hours and hours of boring nonsense work he just trained me to do, and got himself out of doing. It was brilliant, and I have definitely since done that to other people. So guys, that's it for today. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and let me know down below in the comments what good deed you did that backfired for you. With that said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.